Kakashi is one of the coolest and most beloved characters in all of Naruto, but being a great ninja doesn't necessarily make you a great teacher. Despite his role as leader of Team 7 and leading them through a lot of dangerous missions throughout the series, Kakashi repeatedly failed to give all of his students the guidance they truly needed. From favoritism and lack of supervision to leaving major gaps in their training. There's a very strong argument to be made that not only was Kakashi not a good sensei, but he was actually an incredibly horrible sensei. And that's why today we're talking Kakashi was a horrible sensei. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Alright, so getting right into it, Kakashi being a horrible sensei is obviously a pretty bold statement to claim. However, there is a lot of evidence that backs up this claim. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is how he handles Naruto throughout the series, specifically in the early days of Naruto. And the first major instance that this actually happens is during the Chunin exams. You see, Naruto and Sasuke actually advance and make it to the finals of the Chunin exams. And Kakashi, rather than trying to help Naruto during the month that they have to prepare, he instead decides to dedicate all of his time to Sasuke. And this is even crazier when you consider the fact that Kakashi and Sasuke didn't get to train for a full month. No, instead, they actually only trained for about 2 weeks. That's how long it took Sasuke to learn the Chidori. And this happened because Sasuke was literally still in the hospital for 2 of the 4 weeks during that month break that they had. So in my opinion, Kakashi absolutely could have and should have dedicated that first 2 weeks to helping Naruto further his training, especially considering the fact that Kakashi had no idea of knowing that Jiraiya would have shown up to help Naruto with his training. Instead, Kakashi had the bright idea to hand Naruto off to Ibisu's sensei, and he let Ibisu train Naruto for the finals in the Chunin exams. And considering the fact that Naruto was going up against Neji, someone who was a literal prodigy, it would have made sense for Kakashi to put in a little bit of work with one of his students. However, instead, he just dedicated all of his time to Sasuke, which makes absolutely no sense. Because again, Sasuke was bedridden for at least 2 of those 4 weeks. So why wouldn't Kakashi take some of that time that Sasuke couldn't train anyway and dedicate it to Naruto and dedicate it to trying to make Naruto stronger? Would he have been able to gain some absurd jutsu or anything like that? No, probably not. But still, it would have shown that Kakashi at least cared about his other students aside from just Sasuke. However, the entire Chunin exam arc, in my opinion, just shows how much favoritism Sasuke truly got from Kakashi. And it makes it even worse that not only did Kakashi neglect Naruto's training, but when it came time for Naruto to face off against Neji, Kakashi was nowhere to be found. He was off still training with Sasuke. And they even almost missed Sasuke's match against Gaara. And when they find out that Naruto had defeated Neji, there isn't some type of awesome heartfelt moment between Kakashi and Naruto. The moment actually becomes something between Sasuke and Naruto. And although I love that for those two characters, I absolutely hate it for Kakashi as a sensei. He just is failing all around when it came to Naruto. However, that isn't the only time that he fails Naruto from a training perspective. After Naruto has his battle with Sasuke, we know that Naruto is going to go off with Jiraiya and do some training. However, Jiraiya decides to leave the village. He goes off and the story continues before we get the time skip. And during that time, there was absolutely times where Naruto and Kakashi were both in the village at the same time. And there absolutely would have been an opportunity for Naruto and Kakashi to train a little bit more together. And considering the fact that Kakashi had just seen 2 of his students battle to the almost death, and he had seen what a toll that was taking not only on Sakura, but also on Naruto, it would have been a very impactful thing for Kakashi to say, hey Naruto, while you're waiting for Jiraiya, I'm going to oversee your training. We are going to do some one-on-one special training to get you stronger, to try to get you more up to speed and get you on the level of Sasuke so that you can bring him back and so that you can defend yourself more. Because at this point, we also know that the Akatsuki are after Naruto. Jiraiya quite literally tells Kakashi at one point that their target is the nine-tailed fox. So considering all of this, it absolutely baffles my mind that Kakashi waits 60 plus episodes into Naruto Shippuden to actually go through an actual training regimen with Naruto. And considering the fact that we see him learn and master wind style Rasen Shuriken in this time, it just makes it even worse that Kakashi never dedicated any of this time to Naruto in the past. Now, am I saying that Naruto would have been able to learn the wind style Rasen Shuriken even sooner or learn epic jutsu like this? No, absolutely not. But what I am saying is that Kakashi definitely neglected Naruto. And there were absolutely absolutely things that Kakashi could have taught Naruto. Some things that Naruto had to actually focus on during his time with Jiraiya. Some things were very simple, basic ninja things. So could you imagine if Kakashi actually took the time to teach Naruto a lot of these things? Then Naruto could have spent a lot more of his time with Jiraiya training on more specific and more powerful jutsu. He could have mastered a better form of the Rasengan, a form of the Rasengan that didn't require a shadow clone. This is something that, especially in the early days of Naruto Shippuden, was a big hindrance for him. And while yes, I could point out that Kakashi also knew that Naruto's father was the 4th Hokage, and that does definitely lead to a couple of issues, I do also know that Kakashi and pretty much everyone in the village was forbade from telling Naruto anything about his parents, anything about the Nine Tails, so that one I will give at least a slight pass on. However, it does still bother me personally a little bit, but not as much as it bothering me that Sakura never learned Genjutsu. This is something that absolutely baffles me. Kakashi during the Bell test learned that Sakura was actually more proficient in Genjutsu than someone like Sasuke, who quite literally possesses the Sharingan, a dojutsu that specializes in Genjutsu. So the fact that Sakura had an affinity for Genjutsu that even surpassed that of an Uchiha was absolutely absurd. And what's even crazier is that during the Konoha Crush arc, Sakura is able to very easily break out of the Genjutsu. And Kakashi even points out that it was worthwhile teaching her Genjutsu during their survival test. And then he trusts Sakura to break Naruto and Shikamaru out of the Genjutsu once again. However, just like Kakashi didn't train with Naruto after Naruto had battled with Sasuke, we also know that Kakashi didn't train with Sakura after that point at all. And I know you can say that Sakura was training with Tsunade, and you're right, she was learning medical ninjutsu, she was also learning to master her chakra control, and also mastering that monstrous strength that she and Tsunade possess. However, it does stand to reason that considering how busy we know Hokages are, that Sakura had a decent amount of free time on her hands. And during that free time, she absolutely should have been working with Kakashi on Genjutsu, considering the fact that Kakashi literally knows how to use Genjutsu and he possesses a Sharingan. They could have spent not only the time that Naruto had his battle with Sasuke to the end of the original series, but also the time skip between Naruto and Naruto Shippuden training in Genjutsu. Could you imagine how insanely powerful Sakura with Genjutsu truly would be? And what makes this even worse is that when Kakashi meets up with Sakura once again in Shippuden, he starts comparing her to Tsunade. However, he also notes that Sakura is more of a Genjutsu type. And in my opinion, this is so blasphemous because if you can acknowledge that she is more of a Genjutsu type, it would stand to reason that teaching her some Genjutsu would absolutely make sense. Sakura with Genjutsu would be so incredibly broken. Imagine if she could pull off some of the Genjutsu that we've seen Kurenai pull off, and instead of her sneaking up behind someone with a kunai, she sneaks up on someone and hits them with one of those massive punches. Any fight she would be in would practically be over, especially in the early days of Naruto Shippuden. There is virtually no one that could survive a full force punch from Sakura. That's why it becomes such a big thing for characters to dodge her punches, and why she quite literally states so many times when she is fighting that all she needs to do is land one single punch. So could you imagine how beneficial it would be for her to be able to utilize Genjutsu to trick her enemy into allowing her to land one or two punches? That would definitely end the fight. But alas, Kakashi decided not to help out his student at all throughout the entire time skip, which is absolutely crazy considering the fact that Sasuke was gone. Naruto was gone. He was off training with Jiraiya. And I know you can say, well, Kakashi probably just figured that Sakura was training with Tsunade and that would have been good enough. But in my opinion, Kakashi should have dedicated even more time to Sakura. She was the only student of his that was still remaining in the village. He saw how broken she was after everything happened with Sasuke. And considering the fact that Sakura is the one that Kakashi put in the least amount of time training, it would make a lot of sense for him to dedicate at least a little bit of time to her during this time skip. They had almost 3 years. And over the course of that 3 years, we know that Sakura and Kakashi rarely interacted. That is very evident by their reunion at the beginning of Shippuden. It is stated that they really haven't seen each other much at all. And this to me just highlights why he is such a failure as a sensei. He has neglected 2 out of 3 of his students. However, in my opinion, his worst offense as a sensei is how he handled Sasuke. And yes, I know he definitely handled Sasuke's training in a very proficient way. He dedicated a lot of time to training Sasuke and helping Sasuke hone a lot of his abilities. However, what he didn't do is try to understand the feelings that Sasuke had inside. Yes, there is a moment where he tries to empathize with Sasuke and tries to tell Sasuke that he understands the pain he had gone through and that he too has lost a lot of people, including all of the people that he held near and dear to his heart. However, in my opinion, he didn't go far enough because he tries to tell tell Sasuke to push those feelings aside, to focus on the people that matter in his life, and to cast aside revenge. However, in my opinion, what Kakashi should have done in this moment when talking to Sasuke is he should have stated that Itachi is a rogue shinobi, and rogue shinobis are someone that the Leaf is going to have to deal with. But right now, Sasuke, you are not strong enough, but you can be. I taught you the Chidori, and I can continue to help you hone and master even stronger abilities so that you and I together can bring down Itachi, but not out of revenge. We can do it to ensure that our family is protected, the new friends that we have accumulated an incredible bond with. So we can do this not out of vengeance, but we can do it to protect the people that we have in our lives now, to ensure that those bonds that we have will never be broken again. What do you say, Sasuke? Do you agree to some training with me, to some one-on-one intense training, or do you want to go down this path with Orochimaru and give yourself to him? I feel like if Kakashi had framed it in this way, Sasuke absolutely would have stayed in the village. He would have dedicated even more time to training with Kakashi. And if Kakashi made it very clear that they would have had the goal in mind of taking on Itachi and training to get stronger together to protect these new bonds that had been formed, I think Sasuke would have absolutely stayed in the village. And if those sound shinobi did make a move after this, Kakashi would have been there. And in my opinion, if you have Sasuke and Kakashi standing up against those 4 sound shinobi, I feel like it would have been a relatively easy fight for them to win. And Orochimaru then doesn't get his vessel. However, let's just say Sasuke still decides to leave and everything still happens the same exact way. Kakashi still fails when he goes and meets Sasuke again after Sasuke had killed Danzo. You see, by this point in time, Kakashi knows the truth about Itachi, and yet instead of acknowledging any of this, instead of condemning the actions of the higher-ups of the Leaf Village, he instead once again decides to tell Sasuke to push aside all of his emotions, to push aside that feeling of wanting revenge, to push aside all of the hatred that he is feeling in his heart, and telling him that it doesn't matter, instead of truly trying to understand his student, the one he should understand better than anyone else. It's the one that he had a true connection to. And in my opinion, if Kakashi had just looked at Sasuke and told him that he understands why he killed Danzo, and he understands that Danzo was a true menace and a true monster, and went so far as to actually condemn the actions of the elders of the Leaf Village, and promised that once they returned to Konoha, the 2 elders would have been dealt with in some way, I think Sasuke, at the very least, would have been open to discussion in that moment. Now, would he have ultimately concluded that the 2 elders needed to die? Yeah, probably, but that's something that they could have discussed a little bit later on. The most important thing is that Kakashi closed off any chance of dialogue right at the beginning by pushing aside how Sasuke was feeling, and by diminishing all those feelings to just wanting revenge, especially considering the fact that in this moment, Sasuke literally tasted how great vengeance can be. He was completely vindicated in these moments that revenge was the right thing to do, and instead, all Kakashi was offering him was to push all of that aside and go fight for the Leaf Village. That makes absolutely no sense. And ultimately, we see that Kakashi was unable to save his student. He was unable to rescue his student from the hatred that he had been enveloped in. And if not for Naruto, the story would have ended in a very different way. All because Kakashi decided to neglect a lot of aspects of being a sensei. And that's why, in my opinion, although I love Kakashi as a character, and he's one of the best characters in the entire series, he is absolutely one of the worst sensei that we see in all of Naruto. But I'm interested to hear from all of you. What do you think Kakashi's worst offense is as a sensei? Who do you think is potentially worse than Kakashi as a sensei? And who do you think would have benefited most from Kakashi actually being a good sensei to all of Team 7? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.